Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan Podcast by College Baseball Advisors. First and foremost, Happy New Year. Today is Friday, January 2nd. On this Game Plan Podcast, we try to talk all things college baseball, recruiting, development, mental game, anything to help players and coaches and parents be better at the game of baseball. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach. I'm currently a recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we had AJ Miller, head baseball coach at Lafayette College, with an awesome conversation talking everything from when he grew up playing football, wrestling, and baseball. And his dad owned a batting cage, and after school, he would go right to the cage all the time and talked about his recruiting process, which was late, where he got recruited to Lafayette and his experience there growing around players and coaches, ultimately becoming 2011 Player of the Year in the Patriot League. He went on to play a couple of years of independent ball. We talked about how competitive it is, how cutthroat independent ball is. And then he worked a couple of years in the business world using his civil engineering degree before he just decided he really loved baseball. He wanted to get in it. So he took a part-time job at Lehigh University with Coach Sean Leary, was there for a season, and then wound up getting a higher paying job running teams and doing advising as what I'm doing now for All-Star Baseball. And then when the head assistant job came open at Lehigh, he was fortunate enough to get back into coaching at Lehigh with Coach Leary, moved up to be the associate head coach, and then took over the program at Lafayette. Talked a lot about how now in year four, he and his staff have kind of finally got the program exactly where they want it in terms of just the type of people and the culture that they want. So we covered a lot of stuff, what he wants in recruits, a lot about Lafayette College, and it just was a really great, fun, informative conversation that I think you'll enjoy. So again, Happy New Year. And without further delay, here's my conversation with AJ Miller, head baseball coach at Lafayette College. So AJ, I'm very excited to have you on. And as you and I were discussing before I hit the record button, with young kids in the holidays, you were actually excited to come do the podcast and get a chance to come into work, which is basically like vacation at this point for you.
Yeah, no, first, Wayne, thank you for having me on. But yes, this is a little breath of fresh air. Having little ones at home can wear you out a little bit, but it's good to get back in the office, have a sense of a routine. But no, I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
And thanks for saying that. But I do remember back in my coaching days, like truly the December kind of break time into January is really almost one of the few times in modern day Division I baseball when you actually truly have downtime, right? Like the summer is a grind as
Yeah.
much as any time of year, right? So this is work-wise the slowest you would be, right?
Yeah, it's I like to call it the dad equity time. You spend time with the kids because the next couple months we're gone, right? On weekends and for me, we I have 1 or 2 weekends left here and then basically don't have time off much until the end of fall ball next year. So yeah, you build that time with the family, spend time with the kids and make your wife happy first and foremost.
Right. Exactly. So let's go back to talking younger days, but about you. And I always like to start off talking about what people's sports background was. Now, I
Yeah.
looked, from a few things from your bio. Were you born and raised in Jersey?
Yeah, born and raised. Lived in Manasquan, New Jersey, down the Jersey Shore most of my life. And then, post college, kind of lived in the Jersey, Philly area, and then ultimately been in the Valley with my wife now for almost 4 years.
And athletically, obviously, baseball was a part of your life. You
hmm
wouldn't be on here. Everyone here is a baseball guy, but did you play other sports growing up, or was you locked in on baseball?
Yeah, I played football and I wrestled. And then, baseball really was the driving seat for me. I was fortunate to grow up. My dad owned a batting cage growing up in North Jersey. So every day after school, from when I could remember until sophomore, junior year of high school, would pick me up from school and we would drive up to Lyndhurst, train, work out in the cages, do homework on the car ride there and back. And that was just kind of the norm. So, I was lucky to have that luxury. And, that really is what helped me fall in love with the game so much.
Those other sports you mentioned, were those ones you played in high school, or before you did play
Yeah, I
those?
did play.
Wow. Wow.
My senior years when I stopped and really just focused on just baseball. That was kind of around the time when travel ball really blossomed and blew
Right.
up. I was on one of the first baseball U teams back in the day. Played for John Wells. And that was kind of the beginning of it. Had to make a decision, walk away from football, and football at Manasquan is kind of everything.
Hmm.
The town really rallies around it, and we were pretty good. Won some state championships. That was a tough decision, but I knew for me and my dreams and aspirations to play Division I baseball, I needed to, focus on baseball year round, and I made that choice. And now it's like the norm, right? Like kids are, picking one, and they're, some of them playing more games of travel ball in high school than you do in college.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, right. You're about that age when really things totally
Yep.
started to switch. John Wells, he's a character, that's for
Yep.
sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, when, what do you remember about your recruiting process to Lafayette as a player back then? Were they one of many schools in the mix? What do you remember about the recruiting process?
Yeah, it was certainly different back then. It was much later. I
Right.
ultimately didn't commit to Lafayette until the spring of my senior year. I was committed to a different school prior, a bigger school, and ultimately, social media wasn't a thing, so you didn't really know much um, about who was going where, what the class looked like. But funny story, a competitor of mine that I did know who was older than me, I found out he was transferring into the school that I was committed to, and me being somewhat self-aware at a young age, I understood that he was much better than me, and I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I had a chance to play. And there were some coaching changes too, and uh, it was just the right choice, to make the switch. And then ultimately that spring, I want to say it was March of my senior year, Lafayette was one of the first schools who contacted me, and built a really good relationship with 𝐬𝐿𝐾. And once I came to campus, fell in love, and that was kind of the start of it. And here I am now sitting in Coach Kenny's office.
We'll get to that, which is really wild. By that point, where you in that spring, had you applied already to Lafayette as a regular student, or you hadn't even applied yet?
No, haven't even applied. I don't even remember. Guess I would have just applied regular decision. I know it was late. It was certainly
Right.
later than normal. Um, but yeah, it all happened pretty fast. And I remember signing after taking an AP exam in the spring. But it was all very, very late.
Okay. And then what do you remember? It's not that far removed, but how about your playing career and your experience at Lafayette as a player?
Yeah, and I share with our guys all the time, like it's the best decision I certainly ever made was coming here. I got one of the best degrees you could get in the country. Most importantly, I met my wife here.
Nice.
My best friends. But what I remember most is, not so much the games and the results and the success, and it's more the off the field at practice, stuff that you remember doing with your teammates, stuff that we always reminisce about, and we still to this day talk about in our group chats. And my teammates certainly live vicariously through me now because I'm living it still, and which is pretty cool. But it's those moments, right, where you kind of you learned how to become a man,
Yeah.
and kind of build who you are as a person, and how you set yourself up for who you're going to be for the rest of your life as a someone in the real world, a father, a husband. It's those moments for sure.
Yeah, I've always said, I think I'm not the only one to think this, that you're learning as much in just going through college and dealing with people and roommates and teams than you are just sitting in a classroom learning.
Yeah.
You do grow up, you do become an adult when you're in college for sure. Um, I know that you were a catcher in college. Was that your position the whole time? Did you catch all through travel ball, all through high school? You always a catcher?
No, so I was a third baseman, infielder, and then my sophomore year of high school, we really only had one catcher on varsity, and uh, they just needed somebody else who could catch. And I worked with, he still coaches at Manasquan, Brian Lee, um, taught me everything I know about catching and made me into the catcher that I am and or was. And it just kind of took off and, became pretty good at it, stuck with it, and never really played infield again after that, and just kind of took over and caught the rest of my career.
I mean, I'm assuming you had the want to do it because
Yeah.
over my coaching career, whether it's myself or other stories of kids trying to convert to catcher, if you're not all in, it's like miserable. So you obviously must have not only had the skills for it, but you must have wanted to do it.
Yeah, I think part of the want was I wanted to play varsity, right? And I think, that was my foot in the door. I think you also have to be a little bit crazy to want to be a catcher.
You do.
It's a demanding position. Um, and for me, it was a no-brainer. I made the switch and I enjoyed doing it. And again, I was surrounded by the right coaches and people who prepared me. And yeah, like I enjoyed it most certainly.
So my quick catching story is I'm a lefty. So,
Hmm.
of course, you don't catch. But as in my coaching career as the pitching coach, occasionally the catchers weren't available and
Yeah.
I'd put on the stuff and protect myself and catch some pens, which was alarmingly hard, right?
Yeah.
But then occasionally in my life, I caught a couple of live things. This is as an adult at like 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a newfound respect for catching. I mean, it is brutal back there. And these guys in the big leagues make it look so easy. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really like it's a thankless job, right? It's just the
Thankless.
expectation is like you just do it and you do it well. It's hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, like you have to be a little bit crazy to want to do it and like be successful at it because you just get beat up and like a bad catcher can ruin a game or an inning
Ruin.
or like if you're just not 100% locked in and focused the entire time, like you can blow it and it is definitely different for
Yeah.
sure.
And of course we know, I mean, everyone knows pitching is the most important part.
Yeah.
But you're right. When the catcher is really good, it's almost like you take it for granted. But when the
Mhm.
catcher is not good, you almost can't play the game of baseball if the catcher's not doing the
Yeah.
job properly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Otherwise, you don't want your catcher playing fetch behind home.
Right.
It'd be a very long day.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So obviously, then you must have had a solid career. I mean, you became the player of the year in the Patriot League. I believe it was 2011.
Yeah.
That's a heck of an impressive honor for that level of league in baseball. I guess I'll ask you this. Were you always good in your college career, or did you just go off one year and have a magical year?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to play a lot early on. And I built the trust within the pitching staff and the coaching staff here that allowed me to play. And I think it was just the time put in developing my game. My senior year is when I was fortunate enough to win that award. And again, like I surrounded myself with really good coaches at home as well. Worked with a guy by the name of Mike Condon, who runs a facility down in Manasquan, and he helped me really transform my offensive game. And that's kind of what came about my senior year. Just my approach and how I went about at bats and what I was looking for. And I think what's unique about what he did for me offensively, it certainly helped me behind the plate as well.
Mm,
Just in pitch calling and thinking about, how I would go about looking for a certain pitch in an at bat when I'm hitting, but then taking that behind the plate and calling games. Um, yeah, that off season with him certainly transformed who I was as a player. It was a special year, and it was fun for sure. But yeah, like the first couple of years, I played every day. And, I would like to think I was a good player, but my senior year certainly was different.
At that point, were you starting to get some looks scouting wise? Did you start to think I can play after college at that point?
Yeah, I knew that's what I always wanted to do. I remember my after my junior year sitting down in this office with Coach Kenny, and he would sit the juniors down and just ask, what are our goals for life beyond college? We're approaching our senior years, an internship, what are we looking to do? And I remember telling him like I want to play beyond college, and we had a conversation about that and what that looks like, and where I need to improve, and and his question, was, well, if that doesn't work out, then what? I didn't have an answer because that's all I knew. All I knew was baseball. And I actually told him I said I want to coach. And I think at that moment he laughed at me. I was like, well, you're going to Lafayette. Like, why would you choose that career? I'm like, well, you went to Lehigh and here you are. And yeah, again, it's crazy. It's a full circle moment that I am sitting, here where he was. And but yeah, I did always want to play. I was fortunate to play a little bit of indie ball, post college. There was uh, certainly some draft look and love. But again, like back then it was different. The lack of social media, the lack of technology. My senior year was the first year of BB core, so like that was weird. The
Right.
bats were certainly different. Like the home run numbers were so down that year.
Totally. Totally.
But then like for me, I doubled all my numbers. I
Mm.
think that just confused people, like what is good and what isn't. And like that, 2011, I think statistically, I was top 10 in the country in almost everything, but like, no one really knew because dead ball, dead bat, like what is good, what isn't. Maybe if it was a couple of years later, the result could have been different. But I think everything happens for a reason.
It's funny. It's been so long now about that change of bats. It was a massive, massive difference. There
Yeah.
was a kid, I was coaching at Sacred Heart then. There was a kid in the conference who hit 23 home runs the last year of the live bats and then hit three the following year. And, I think the difference, a lot of it was the bat because this guy could hit. Um, those old bats were dangerous. Let's just face it. I mean, it was
Oh
scary,
yeah, they were like
scary.
trampolines, but like it was weird. Like I went from hitting like zero my freshman year, four, six, and I hit 12 my senior year. But those bats, like I remember, like we were playing Ryder. It was a really cold day, and uh, I get this 0-0 changeup, and I just remember because I was sitting on it, and I barreled it. It felt good, and it was a weak pop up to second base, and I'm standing there holding the bat, confused, and the bat was just split in half like a flower. I'm like, what? And like that was, I think I went through like four or five bats that year, like just like that. The cap would pop off and they'd split.
I remember that
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, totally. Um, Tell me about the indie ball experience. Would you play a couple of years of that?
Yeah, I did too. My first year I was in Normal, Illinois, which, might be the least normal place I've ever been. I believe it's the fast food capital of the US. I think, at the time they prided themselves on having two of every fast food chain in town.
Right.
Um, it was different. It was certainly a culture shock. Again, growing up on the beach and, being someone who, surfed, and now I'm living in the cornfields, and the experience was awesome. My teammates, the coaching staff, the stadium, everything about it was awesome, but it was different. And definitely took some adjusting. And then my second year, I was picked up by the Lincoln Salt Dogs in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the American Association, which was really cool. First class organization, really good league. Played with a number of first rounders that were on the team. And like, I was the youngest guy in the team, and those guys took care of me. And but for me, at the end of that year, it was kind of maybe halfway through. I just realized like there's more to what I want to do in life. I just remember, a lot of guys didn't have college degrees, and I just like I used to get they would poke fun at me for being like the smart guy,
Right, right, right.
and if you ask Coach Kenny, he would tell you, mate, I might have been the least smart guy that
Right,
first year,
right.
but like I had the college degree, and like guys were working on finishing their degrees, and I'm helping them write papers, and like it was different. Again, the culture shock continued, and it was it was a lot of travel. I think it was like 140 games,
Yeah.
long bus rides. We'd bus from Fargo in the Dakotas down to El Paso, Texas. I remember that was a 32-hour bus ride. And like for me, that moment, like we did that bus trip. We get off in El Paso. It was 115 degrees. We were late. We missed pregame, so it was just like basically just go get loose, go warm up in the cages. And there was just like all these gnats, mosquitoes in the
Oh.
air, and get off the bus and like I'm just covered. And I had a really good game that game, and we finished. I think we won in extras. And I go back into the clubhouse. I sit down and I'm just sitting there, just exhausted. And I'm sitting next to our backup catcher, and I look up, and there's a scorpion on my deodorant stick. And I just said to him, I'm like, dude, like, and he was from Texas, and I was like, can you get that off? Like, I can't. And I went outside and called my mom. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is it. And I think we had like a month left or something like that. And I ended up playing my best baseball after that because it was just kind of, there
Free,
wasn't
right?
stress. Yeah, it was free. And, but I knew I wanted to do more. And I didn't know exactly what it was at the time. I knew I wanted to get into coaching, but like getting into this world is tough. Like it's a lot of it is who you know and timing.
Yep.
And I just wanted to start my life. And, again, fortunate that I made the decision when I did, and it's kind of all led me to where I am now.
A couple of things I'm assuming you found this way, but most people in the know in baseball know what I'm about to say, but outside they may not. Independent ball is really good baseball, right? Like
Yeah.
like it's not below rookie. It's probably A ball, double A ball at a certain level, right? Because you have
Yeah.
guys that have been released that are trying to get back in. It's really good baseball.
Yeah, especially when I was in Lincoln, like we had a couple guys who were picked up and went to the higher levels and ultimately to the big leagues. Like my roommate in Lincoln, Tim Adelman, he was picked up by the Reds.
Oh yeah, of course. I remember Tim. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did he go to
and
Georgetown?
yeah, he went to
Yeah,
Georgetown.
yeah, yeah.
He was my roommate. He was picked up and ended up being a big leaguer for a couple of years. Like
Yes.
that was kind of the norm. We had a couple arms in the back end of the bullpen who were picked up and made it to the big leagues that year. It's indie ball's it's a grind. It's very cutthroat. Like if you don't produce, you don't bring something to the table, like you're gone, like on to the next. And uh, it, that's scary, right? Like you walk into the clubhouse, so you don't know any given day someone walks in and says, "Hey, Skip wants to see you." Like that means like you're gone, and
Right.
you pack up and leave. And like, you see that happen to guys. And like I remember the one year, we break spring training, and the first series, like we just did not play well, and our pitching coach put Burger King applications in every pitcher's locker. And like guys were all up in arms. He's like, "You guys stink. Like I get rid of you. Like this is what you're gonna go do right now." And sure enough, within the week we almost had a whole new pitching staff. Like that was just how it was. Like the expectation is to win and play well, bring something to the table, show your value, show your worth, and if you don't, on to the next.
Yeah, because also at that, I'm thinking from their side, probably guys are getting released from the minors and
Yep.
they're going, hold on, we could get this guy and replace
Yep.
the guy we have. So it's always this turnover if you're not producing, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and it's like I remember my first year when I got picked up by Normal. Like I went into the clubhouse, and typically you just carry two catchers, and I went in and they didn't release one of the catchers yet, and it was awkward. And they
Mm,
just after the first game they released one of them, and like that's just how it was. And it was just
right,
like, see ya, like I'll never see you again. Maybe I will. Like I don't know. And it's tough, and it's tough to build relationships with people because you just never know. They could be gone the
right.
next day.
Yeah. All right. So after at that point, you realize that's it. now it's time to get into coaching. As you said, timing, some connections. So correct me if I'm wrong, you get an opening and start your coaching career at Lehigh, correct?
Well, before that, so I tried to get in right away, and there just wasn't a window. I didn't. I tried to utilize connections that I had. Kind of a couple things fell through, and ultimately I was like, you know what? Let me try my degree. Let me try using this. Um, so I got a job as a civil engineer for a large production home building company. Did that for 2 years. And in 2013, I believe, I was the company's builder of the year. Built like 88 homes. It was awesome. Like it was a grind. Managing multiple job sites and contractors and budgets. Again, using what I went to school-ish for. Um, but again, like I just didn't love it. And I won that award, and a day or two later, I quit. And then
Mm.
I got a job, working for a company that ran youth camps and fantasy camp for the Phillies. And I just, I wanted to get back into the sport. I did that, and ultimately that led me to Lehigh. Um, and within a year of taking that job, I got in, coaching with Sean Larry at Lehigh, as an assistant, and it kind of just started there.
So I didn't know that. I'm glad that, you told me that. It's interesting. Really, almost there's a rare exception that I've had people on here, almost 70 people, that were straight up coaches and never tried something else, whether they tried it first and got into coaching or they started to coach, went into this other job and then came back. It's interesting. So you had this job that used your exact degree. You were
Yeah.
pretty darn good at it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't fulfilling enough. And it must have been, were you dating your now wife?
Yeah.
Right,
Oh
right.
yeah. And I remember when I quit, like I made that decision. I probably should have consulted her first. Like it was a good job, got paid really well. And I remember she drove out to the job site and like, what are you doing? Like why are we doing this? And I was like, I don't love it. I can't do this. Like I don't want to, I want to get into baseball. And it was a massive pay cut.
Massive, yeah.
And I just knew, and I just said, like, you got to give me time. I'm gonna figure this out. It's gonna work out. And luckily, she believed in me and my vision and my passion, and she trusted me, and stuck by my side, and has seen it through all the way with me.
So obviously now with Lehigh, I'll have to ask. Probably I'm not the only one. Lehigh's a great program. Coach
Yep.
Leary's been there forever. But when you're at Lafayette, you want to kick Lehigh's butt when you're on the field,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
listen, you're just starting a coaching job, so you'll take what you can get at that first. Was that a little weird at all? Starting,
It was so weird.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
I remember going there even just to interview, like I was just like, what this is like, again, as a player, you're like, I hate this other school. Like you don't
right.
say that name around here. And like it was weird, and it definitely took some adjusting. And even like the players at Lehigh, when I first started, like, oh, we're bringing this Lafayette guy in.
Right.
Um, it was different, but again, like I'm very thankful for that time there. Sean let me do my thing, and you know, gave me the opportunity to really grow as a coach. And my time there with him certainly prepared me for, what I'm trying to do here. If I didn't have that experience with him, I don't think I would have been ready for this job. I don't think I would have gotten this job. So very, very thankful for my time there.
So that year what was your first year there?
Fall of 2015.
Fall of 2015. Okay. And then correct me if I'm wrong, you then left for a little bit and started to do a little, basically what I do now, a little bit of
Yeah.
the advisement role. Was that wasn't a place at one of the places that you mentioned already on this podcast? Like,
No, that was with All Star Baseball
okay,
Academy down in
got it.
Westchester, PA. Part of it was, I was in a part-time role, wasn't making a ton of money.
Totally get it.
I was getting the pressure from the girlfriend, wife, like, hey, like we need to take next steps. I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account, um, and thought maybe change could lead to other opportunities. But ultimately, I needed to find a way to buy a ring.
Right.
And so took that role, did that for a year. Got the ring, proposed, and then the top assistant job opened up at Lehigh, and Sean actually drove down to a tournament that I was, going to see some of my players at for All-Star and offered me the job. And again, probably should have consulted with my wife, took it and came home and said, "Hey, I'm going back to Lehigh." And again, at the moment wasn't probably a great conversation, but she trusted me and believed in, my what my goals and aspirations were, and thankful for her along this journey for sure.
So two questions based on that. One is you realize that people that do what I do, the recruiting, it's not easy.
No,
It's not an easy
no,
gig, right?
no.
Yeah, because the reality is, right, you know certain things about a player, but and what I always saw my role, see it as now, and I'm curious if saw it the same, is my job is to tell a college coach
Mhm.
about a kid and have the coach just evaluate the kid.
Mhm.
Hey, if you like him, awesome. If he's not the right kid for you, that's fine too. Or if
Yep.
you don't think he's very good, I'll pass that along to the kid to say, hey, dude, you're shooting too high. We got to lower your expectations. So like, I don't feel as much that I would like selling a kid as more as I'm just trying to bring the two sides together. What did you find about doing that? Did you hate it? Were you good at it? What did you?
Yeah, it was a lot. I think, again, like my role there was a little bit like I managed the teams too. So we had
Right.
something like 27 teams at the high school
Wow.
age. And so like it was all those players. I think the hardest part, honestly, was managing the parents' expectations.
Right.
If I was just working with the kids, I think I would have enjoyed it more. Um, because you can temper those a little bit more. And I get it now as a parent, at the time, obviously I wasn't. You absolutely want the best for your child. Like there's no doubt about it. And you never want to admit your kid is bad at anything.
Right.
Um, but that was the hardest part. For me, that's certainly what drove me away from that world. But it was hard, like trying to get people to watch certain players. Like yourself, like I had the experience of being a college coach. I know, we know what success looks like, what a projectable player looks like, but again, also, as you know, like everybody has their own opinions, and
Exactly.
all you can do is ask somebody to go see a player or evaluate a player, and if they don't, they don't. But the paying customer, like that's where they can get upset, and I get that too. Like that's the business side of it. But when I was in that role, and you now, like ultimately, we're not the decision makers, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Um, you know, trying to make families understand that was hard for me. And again, maybe because I was younger, I was only mid to late 20s. Maybe I didn't have that respect at the time, like you did it a lot longer than I did at the time. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I just felt like I was all over the map, and it was hard to manage. And again, like I knew for me, I wanted to get back into coaching. It was just a matter of finding the right job and place and something that can, provide for a family.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to the parents thing. I think the parents just don't know. They
Hmm.
just don't really
Yeah.
understand how good college baseball is, and they just don't know. So that's part of what I see my role is just to explain to them, listen, your kid's good, but that means he's borderline D3. That's no insult by it, the way,
No.
it's no insult. There's a lot of good players at that level. But
Yeah,
back
not
to,
at all. And like
yeah,
like you said, like it's not everybody knows this world, right? Like there's not a ton of college coaches, right? It'd be
right.
like me, like I can't go tell a doctor or a surgeon like how to do their job or like how they like that's not my world. I don't have a
Exactly.
full understanding of it like we do.
Yes.
And the ability to communicate that effectively to parents, like I think that's what separates really successful people in your industry from the rest.
Yeah.
right? Like that's hard to do, but if you could do it well, if you're a really, really good communicator, like that's where you have success.
Yeah. And then back to your piece, it's really cool that obviously Sean thought highly enough of you as a coach, as a person, that now this opportunity comes and he basically seeks you out. I mean, that's really cool. You guys must have a special relationship even now, late years later, as you're a head coach and against him. But so before you answer that, that led to what? Basically about a 7 year run that you were at Lehigh with him after that? Was that
I was with two the year off and then like 4.5,
okay?
5.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Um, so yeah, so I was the recruiting guy, then became associate head coach. But yeah, like me and Sean really hit it off really out of the gate. We're certainly two different personalities, but I think that's what helped us mesh so well. And like you said, like even today, like I still talk to him pretty regularly. He was a big part of my life. Like
Yeah.
he was a part of my life when I proposed, when I got married, when I had my first kid. He really saw me grow up as a young adult. And we have a bond that, I don't think changes, even though we are in opposite dugouts and we're competing against each other. After every game, we're still hugging it out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
So
Yeah, that people, it is interesting at these levels of sports, like because it is a small community. You guys coach together. You want to kick everyone's butt. Like you
yeah,
want to beat them. You'd rather sweep them in a series than not. But like no matter how it goes, you still respect him. He respects you. That's why it's kind of neat. Coaches shake hands at the end of
yeah,
the series. Occasionally, it's a little heated.
sure,
Occasionally,
sure.
sometimes here and
Yeah,
there, because people get competitive, whatnot.
yeah.
But so then obviously the opportunity comes open at Lafayette, kind of a no-brainer at that point based on your progress in your career, you being an alum. Um, what was it like going for and getting the job that you have now?
Uh, I was nervous for sure. Because I knew this was like the one shot, right? To
Mhm.
to get here, I thought it was the right time. Had Sean's full support. He certainly helped me be ready for the interview. Um, It was awesome. I knew it would be different in terms of like coming from Lehigh to here, right? Just in terms of how the school operated, resources, what the team looked like, and again, as a young head coach, like when I got the job, I was 33.
Mm,
Um, it's a little bit scary, right? You're taking over a team of, 35 guys that don't know you. You didn't recruit, and you have to build a trust pretty quickly. And Lafayette was at a point where, a bunch of guys left before I got the job. Some key pieces. And I knew it was going to be a pretty big rebuild. And so that part's scary, right? And taking that all into consideration and trying to forecast out like where can we be, at what point can we get there, um, isn't easy to swallow. And even in like the hiring process of assistants, like selling them on that,
right.
and even recruiting early on, like we will get there, just a matter of when, and selling that vision and that story. I remember sitting here, like when I did ultimately get the job, sitting at this desk and just kind of looking at it all, and just sitting here and thinking, I need to get to year 4. And I
Mm,
just know, again, like there's some great players that I coached. I'm so fortunate to have been around so many great kids, but like every coach has their own style, their type of player that they want, a culture that they want. And I didn't build what was here prior. And I just knew by year 4, again, like we're not some of the bigger schools where you could just flip a roster,
totally.
year over year. That's just not how it works here. I knew I needed to get here, and like where we are right now, like when the fall started this year, it was just like,
Mm,
yes, like we're here. Like these are the guys. It's just different right now. And, Coach Ryan Luke, he's been with me since the beginning, and like he'd echo the same sentiment. Like we're here. Like this
right.
is this is awesome.
Yeah, I guess a question before we unpack that a little bit is when you first got the job, what was the more difficult transition, running a baseball team on the field for the first time as the head coach, or a lot of the head coaching administrative pieces that maybe you didn't have to tackle as much as an associate at Lehigh? Was it the business office side, or was it the on the field side that was more of a learning curve?
Honestly, I'd say more of on the field. The business side, again, working with Sean, he was very open to giving me opportunity to, have that head coach experience in certain things, and whether it was um, fundraising, the things that matter most in the head coaching role, which is, I make the joke at one of our alumni events, all the alums go around and announce, what their job is and what field they work in. I always say, AJ Miller, class 2011, I work in fundraising and I'm a part-time coach. Um, that is like it's a big part of what we do, right?
Right, right.
Um,
That's funny.
so like Sean really prepared me for that, like the business side. And the on the field stuff, it was, the hard part, I'm a hitting guy by nature, and it's what I love most. And it was like giving reins to the staff and allowing them to be who they are, be their
Yep.
own head coaches in their position specific groups, and kind of just overseeing and not micromanaging. That was certainly the hardest part, right? And if you surround yourself with good people and people that you trust, it makes it easier. And I think we've done a good job of that. But that was definitely an adjustment, like not running the offense day to day, not just spending time with the hitters, making sure I spend time with the pitchers and, the different defensive positional groups. That. I mean, I think too, like, I remember the first staff meeting we had when we were putting together the first practice plan. Like everybody's looking at me like, all right, well, what are we doing?
Right, right,
Like I
right,
remember being in their chairs, like talking to Sean, like, well, this is what I'd like to do from an offensive perspective. And, we kind of all just put it together. Now it's me making that decision, and the pressure or stress of like, is this right? Am I doing this right? Am I
right.
preparing this the best that I can? But that's just like, anything. You have to do it, and to figure out whether or not you're doing it right or you need to make changes. And being open to change, I think, is so important in this job because, like, we don't know all the answers. I certainly don't. Um, and change is inevitable, right? And like, if you don't make changes and you don't have different results, like, that's the definition of insanity. So, like,
Correct.
you need to be open to that. And again, I think it all goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people, and that's the staff, that's the team, and people who are really good communicators and people who are really trustworthy and honest. And if you do that, that's when I think you start to see the success on the field. And I think for us, like that's where we're at right now.
That's great. And what you said echoes something that Cignetti, the head coach at Indiana, said after winning their game yesterday. The football coach said, it's about the people. Like it's about the staff, it's about the players, it is about people, no question. Um, Without going into too much, obviously I know Lafayette, most people in our certainly Northeast do, but there'll be people of various places that don't know much about the college. So can you just give like the places are really an awesome academic athletic school? Can you just talk about the university and what it means to you and potential recruits?
Yeah, I think one of the most unique parts about Lafayette is like it's one of, if not the smallest Division I school in the country. We have over 30% student athletes, right, on campus. So I think what makes it so unique is like it's very rare that you'll ever have a class without another student athlete in it, right? The
Right,
classes are small. And so by design, like athletics really does help drive this college, right? And, what makes it so successful. And so with that, like the relationships that you have with professors and faculty are strong because they understand that like this is a Division I athletic school, but it's also Division I academics, right? It's a
right.
it's a top liberal arts school for a reason. I think that's, the academic side, what makes this place so special is like it being liberal art, like you can kind of create your own path in terms of what you want to do. Like you don't have to come in here knowing like what you want to be, like you could kind of shape it, right? I came in here as a freshman. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Like that's what I wanted to be. And that lasted a semester and realized like not for me and
Right, right,
was
right,
able to take some, different classes to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Ultimately got an economics and business degree and took some engineering classes, which ultimately led me to, my first job as a civil engineer. Um, but like that's what you can do here, right?
right.
And it's not just cookie cutter, you can only do this. And I think that's what makes it special. I think what Lafayette does better than a lot, better than most, is it teaches people how to be master communicators
Mm,
and prepares them for the real world in terms of whatever you want to do. Like I was not that when I got here. I thought I knew all the answers, but again, I was a beach kid who showed up in flip-flops and a tank top. And I'm like, yeah, I
right,
got this.
right,
And
right.
Lafayette kicked me in the mouth. And the professors here and the support system here showed me what success looks like and prepared me for whatever that role was going to be for life beyond college. And like where I am right now, like I give all that credit to, who I was around and who supported me while I was here. Like it is that support system. And it's similar to like what, you know, like when I have my year-end evaluation, right? Like my my boss, our administrative team, like wants to know, like, they care about the wins and losses, right? They want to hear about the success. They don't ask about the failures, right? It's just like the professors here, that's why I tell families all the time. They want to hear about how your son succeeds,
Right,
right? Like their bosses want to hear about that. People aren't out to screw you, make this
right.
more difficult. They want to see you succeed. So if you could communicate really well and show an interest and be a good human being, you're going to have success here. And this place will prepare you because it's hard, it's a lot, it's busy. The question I always get, well, can you tell me about a day in the life? And well, day in the life is busy. Like sun up
Right.
to sundown, like you're doing something. And if you're not taking advantage of that time, like you're gonna get lost, but if you do, you can do what you want.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. Back to the baseball. I've kind of have never asked this question to somebody, but I think
Yeah.
it's fitting for you, which is you said, hey, this fall, you feel like maybe you have the group that you kind of the way you want it, et cetera. Um, if forget wins and losses, because we know the Patriot League, I mean, it's really competitive.
Yeah.
The difference between, to me, always in the Patriot League, between the top team and the bottom team is razor thin, right?
Yeah.
It's really close. This spring, what would your team play like for you to say, hey, this is the way I've wanted my team to play, whether that's base running offensively, defensively, on the mound? Is there like a style that you would love to see the team play this spring?
Yeah, I think where I've seen our struggle in the past is like compounding the failure, right?
Mm,
And like when something goes wrong, like it goes really wrong, and the ability to control that, turn the page, move on, and trust each other, right? And talk to each other, communicate to each other. And I saw that a lot this fall. I
mm.
saw it from the younger guys last year for sure. And those younger guys are now leaders in this program. That's like being able to see that. And, I always say to my coaching staff, like the less we have to talk, the better, right? Like
Amen.
if they're communicating to each other, right? And like I think the best day is when I have to say nothing. And that's great. Like, if, practice ends or scrimmage ends, like, hey, let's put the field to rest. Good day. Like
Yeah.
those are the best days. And we had a lot of those this fall. And it's the guys then saying stuff to each other, coaching each other up, having the right conversation, saying things that have meaning and are impactful, not just saying things to be heard. Um, I just I that I'm seeing that now for the first time. And like that's what has me so excited and why I'm very anxious for the guys to get back here in 2 weeks.
I like what you said a lot because you're not when I asked you that, you didn't say we need to throw more strikes, we need to get more bunts down, we got to be better turning the double play in the middle. It's more of a individual slash team culture mental approach
Yeah.
to the whole thing, right? That's real.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
everybody needs to throw strikes. Everybody needs like
right.
those are the obvious answers. Like, yeah, we need to have success, but I think the separator is the culture, the players. Do they believe in each other? Do they trust each other? Are they honest with each other? Because if they are, that means that we as a staff are instilling that, and then they believe in us, then the whole group believes in each other.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, I coached a long enough time to know that at the end of practice, et cetera, if the coach is exhausted, there's a lot of that you're doing too much and the team is not where you want it to be. But like you
Yeah,
said, if if they're managing a lot of the stuff, then it becomes much easier as a coach and you know your team's where you want it to be.
absolutely.
From a recruit, I just want to ask you one real
Yeah.
recruiting question, which is um, I, I could put on anyone on here, and everyone's looking for good players that are physical, that have good swings, that have good arms, that throw
Yeah.
strikes, that have some velo. Is there anything extra that AJ Miller or your staff looks for, whether it's versatility, whether it's character? Is there something that if you were evaluating eight shortstops that all look equally the same, why are you going to go after this one particular guy over there over another?
It's definitely you said it a little bit. It's the character piece. For me, I always joke. We spend so much time as a staff with our team, right? More so than we do with our own families and our own kids. Like if I go home on any given day, and especially now with the whole team being ours, and say to my wife, ah, man, like I can't stand this kid. He's driving me nuts. Like she wouldn't be mad at the kid. She'd be mad at me and the
Mm,
staff because we chose to bring him in.
mm,
Like that's on us.
right.
And so for me, like first and foremost, like yes, the good player piece, like that's a no-brainer. We all want good players.
Yep.
You have to be a good person. If like we don't enjoy each other's company or presence and like can have a conversation outside of just baseball daily, it's not going to work. And like that for me, like that's like I need to know that before we even bring them to campus. Like I need to know good person, good family, and it's parents too. Good parents. Like we're recruiting the parents just as much as we are the kid because I want the parents to be involved in this. Like I
Yeah.
remember as a player, like my mom coming to so many games. Like I love that. Like I want that for these guys. And like, but I don't want the parent who's telling me how to do my job or chirping from the stands. And like, everybody's had that in the past. Like, and again, right now, we don't have that. We have such a good
Right.
parent group. They're unbelievable. And again, like kids are going to be byproducts of their parents,
Yep.
100%. So like, I need that box checked before we even evaluate the baseball side.
That's really, really, really important and huge. I'm glad you said that. Last thing, unless it brings up another question, but
Yeah.
last thing is, um, if you were to go back either and tell your younger self back in high school, man, I wish I would have done this better, or I wish I would have known this then, or even if you're speaking to a 15 or 16-year-old kid now that says, Coach Miller, like, I really want to play at Lafayette, I want to play D1 baseball. What are one or two things I need to be or do to reach that dream? Is there any advice you have about, I guess, how to get the best out of kids, that are developing in high school?
I think one part that goes not unnoticed, but like the kids that come in, especially the freshmen who certainly are ready to play, are the ones that are the strongest. And
Mhm.
it's the guys who like take the weight room seriously and are physical when they come in. Because like if you're not ready physically, early on in your career, like it's going to take time to develop that. And like those are years that go by you. But if
Right,
you're ready physically now, like you have a chance to impact the program and the team now and play for more than a couple of years. And I think you see some kids who do a really good job of that, some just don't. It's that summer leading into that first fall, like you got to be ready to play,
yeah,
right? Like we compete, everybody does so much in the fall. Like that's where we evaluate what we have, right? Like the individual period and the preseason period. Like we're in Northeast school, like we're inside, we're in cages. Like how much are you actually learning? Sure, a little bit, But like I have a pretty good idea of what our lineup is going to look like right now because of what they did in the fall. So like if
Right.
you're not ready physically, September 1st, you just kind of wasted that year. And so like for me, like I think I was ready-ish when I went into school, but I wish I worked a little bit harder on the physicality piece. And I think it could have been maybe multi-year where I was at the level that I was my senior year. Like I don't think I took it as serious. Again, it was different back then, but like now with all the resources and facilities and everything out there, like these kids have everything that they need. Like if you really want to be an impactful player at the highest level, like take the training part that doesn't take baseball skill seriously and like get after it. Because like I'm 36, about to be 37. Like I don't lift, like I don't need to be physically like strong or like you have time not to do that. Like
Right,
I
right,
don't need to
right.
do that anymore. But when you're young, like get after it now. Like so there's no like what ifs or regrets.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the kids that I work with, after they commit, I say, let that go by for 2 weeks. Congratulations. After 2 weeks, we're gonna get on the phone and I'm gonna tell you what you need to do from today until you walk in there freshman year in the fall to be ready because you're not going to be ready unless you really have a plan because
Yeah.
so you brought that up, for sure. But AJ, this was awesome. I'm glad we got a chance to connect and get you out of the house. And
Yeah.
if you listen, if in a week or so you're struggling again, we could do part two if we
We could
need
do
it.
another one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit the end now. Right.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to this episode of the Game Plan podcast by College Baseball Advisors. Again, I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. For more information about my recruiting business, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. As always, I offer a no obligation, no cost Zoom meeting for players and parents to talk out your particular recruiting process, give you advice. If we works out that we become, a business relationship, great. If not, hopefully my experience will help you in the crazy recruiting process. Again, hope you enjoyed this episode with AJ Miller, head coach at Lafayette College. I'd like to remind you this podcast is made possible through the generous sponsorship of the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place January 15th to 17th, very soon this month, at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. This is just an awesome event. Awesome speakers, awesome vendors, awesome location. The people that attend are even great baseball people. So you have fun conversations and around the casino, around the hotel rooms, around the lobby. It's just everyone talking baseball. It's really, really awesome. So for more information about the Coaches Convention and to register, visit their website, baseballcoachesclinic.com. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the podcast, which will be John Sjogren, head baseball coach at Rollins College. Thanks, everybody.